Welcome, everybody, to Into the Fire. It's April the 12th, 2024. I just thought of something. That's the anniversary when the Titanic sank, actually. That just popped into my head. But we're coming to you live from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this is a really exciting show today. We're going to have Kip Robbins, one of my favorite camera guys. I have several favorites, but he's definitely top tier. And he's going to be joining us today. I think we're really exceptionally lucky to have him here. Usually he's in some remote location in some jungle where there's lions and hippos and the bugs to a whole nother level. So I have no doubt that he's probably been just miserable in some of these places. But he's great. Ronnie, what's been going on with you, buddy?
Oh, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Nothing real crazy to report. Did a bunch of yard work today, but speaking of bugs, what's your personal opinion about bugs?
Well, I hate them, and Ronnie knows that for sure, especially roaches and any kind of rodent, roaches. Ronnie has played tricks on me before, almost giving me a heart attack. I'll tell you, I got my book from last week's guest, Dan Reynolds, who was our last week guest. I went ahead and bought one of his many books, and believe it or not, I actually buy some of these people's books. That book that's the history of the penitentiaries, or the Oklahoma State Penitentiary, looks like it's going to be a great book to have. Welcome, Kathleen. You're an absolute OG. You are here almost every week. I love seeing you in here. Great. And Barb, and there's several others that are just fantastic people that have joined us. My dad, we may end up having another light bulb giveaway coming up. And don't worry, the locator company, my dad ended up buying a couple of extra, and he goes, hey, you should auction those off. Not auction them off. I'm going to give them away. I'm not going to make anybody pay for anything. We're just going to give stuff away. And that's that. So anything else going on in your world?
No, nothing really. There's some stuff going on, but nothing to report just yet. Maybe have some news next week. But yeah, I'm excited to have Kip here. We've had some great camera people here in Tulsa. Obviously, me and Brandon Swanson are super good friends, and we'll go hiking as much as we can once or twice a year. He lives out on the West Coast, but Kip is also someone that I'm really a super fan of, along with Mikey and Beth and Adam and Luke, some of those other guys. But yeah, I'm really happy that Kip's on here. I was fortunate, 2 or 3 weeks ago when he was back in town for a short stint. Mikey reached out to me, and I was able to go have lunch with you guys when Kip was in town. So that was nice getting to catch up with him. And now we're getting to do it again here. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Had a super busy week. I basically tied up the finishing touches on a 2015 cold case that I was able to get solved. I can't take total credit for it. I mean, there's a lot of other credit that goes to just people out there in the world that have a do the right thing mentality. And, we love that. But that helped us get the ball rolling, and we were able to do that. And furthermore, I had a jury trial this week, which we were able to get a guilty verdict, and that young man ended up getting life, which is well deserved. So it's been a great week for me. Super busy. I've still got a mountain of stuff to do, and I say that we get rolling here. I'm going to start off with reading Kip's biography. It's Kip Robbins. He's a freelance director of photography, camera operator, field producer, working in unscripted television. His credits include American Chopper, The First 48, along with Naked and Afraid. And after graduating Denison University with a BA in cinema, he has spent the last 21 years working primarily in reality TV. He lives in Hollywood, California, with his girlfriend, Bridget Weiser, who happens to be an exceptionally talented artist. And basically, he wants to put in here that she's a multi-talented artist who specializes in abstract oil painting. And when he's not working, his downtime is spent pursuing music, culinary arts, and writing. He's tremendously proud of having built a career that's allowed him the opportunity to visit deeply beautiful natural landscapes while interacting with extraordinary people like us along the way. And welcome to Kip Robbins, my buddy.
Hey.
By the way, this is his first podcast in the history of his life, so this is really exciting for all of us. And he was saying earlier off air that this is kind of the future of the world. So, and he's right. It is as well. Welcome, my friend. Seriously, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's like I said, it is a true honor to be talking with you. I love everything that you guys do, and this was probably the highlight of my year so far, being able to have to be included in this conversation. So thank you.
All right, that's awesome. The bar must be set a little bit low, but that's okay. We're glad to have you here. No, actually, Kip just spent a little bit of time here. Hey, the probably the best question to start off with. You're a field producer, also known as a camera guy, right? Is that kind of interchangeable? You're a camera operator, or is it not? What is a field producer?
A field producer is a person whose job description is to help facilitate the story for whatever capacity it is that they're working in. Like with what we do on First 48, it is one of the most challenging positions that anyone can be in, because aside from having to produce or to sort of help shape the actual stories that are being told through your eyes, we have to shoot it, we have to record it with audio, and then we have to help create a blueprint for the post department to be looking at down the road. So a field producer can be on their own without a camera op or an audio component in hand, and just focused entirely upon speaking with talent and creating their notes. But First 48 has, I think, some of the most talented people in the business, because it is like playing, I don't know, it's almost like playing jazz. You really do have to know how to do a lot of different things all at once, and you have to do it well to make it work.
That's something that I always appreciated about you guys that followed us. And we've been super lucky in Tulsa to have some great field producers there, you included, obviously. But just the fact that there isn't a crew, it's you, and oftentimes there's two of you guys that are, one's with one detective and someone else is with the other, but you guys are setting up the audio, that the little mics that we wear, doing the filming, and you guys are a one-man crew, and you guys just do it so well. It's great, because I never had any of you guys like getting our way. Obviously you guys put yourself out there too, because working murders, there's some crazy stressful situations that you can get into and dangerous, and you guys are always professional. And if we ask you, hey, put the camera down, anything like that, so you guys did. And I just wanted to, I've told you before, but I just wanted to tell so everyone can hear it. I appreciate how you guys handle yourself on that show.
Thank you very much. It is definitely something that I've been really lucky to work with some exceptional people along the way who help kind of model that behavior. And like you said, there's some incredibly talented people who are in Tulsa right now who I'm sure modeled that as well.
Yeah.
Just to talk about the First 48 specifically, just for the listeners, what cities have you actually filmed in that have been on that show aside from Tulsa?
I started off in Atlanta back in 2016. Or I'm sorry, 2015 is when I started in Atlanta. And that was for short-term work. I was there for just over 2 months. And then from Atlanta, I went to Tulsa the following year for a little bit longer. I spent more time in Tulsa than any other city, but it's primarily Atlanta, Tulsa, and then Gwinnett County.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. And so in Tulsa, who is your least favorite detective and why? I'm playing. So
well, earlier he told me it was you, Jason.
No.
Yeah. No, so seriously, in one of those things that I'm curious about, how many murder investigations do you think that you have filmed on, or you've witnessed and things like that?
I'm guessing it's probably close to, I mean, if I'm just doing the math, I'm saying anywhere between 3 dozen, if I'm, to be real with like the amount of time that I've been a part of this. And some of them aren't, as investigations that we follow. We will show up and see where it leads. But in terms of actual stories for the First 48, I'd say it's probably in that ballpark. I remember my very first scene that I went to wasn't even for the purposes of a show. But it made a lasting impression upon me. The field producer who I worked with in Atlanta was exceptional about sort of giving me the right guidance as to what the show's looking for, what we should avoid, how to be courteous with the investigators, and ultimately how to be sensitive to families and victims, and sort of, this is not, we're not paparazzi. Like we're here to essentially just live as flies on the wall, so to speak, to capture reality unfolding. And there is, in my opinion, there is nothing quite as real as the first 48 in terms of what the genre represents.
Yeah, and I think that people ask me all the time, and we were kind of talking about this before we came on air, of how does it really work type things. And I tell people, I said, they hang out in our office, and if something happens, they hop in the car and they follow us. If it's in the evening or overnight, then they're at wherever they're living at the time, and they get called and they come and meet us. And there are times that we have to do a little refilming, I guess, for lack of better words, just when like some audio gets messed up or something. But it isn't, you guys aren't setting up the scenes or anything. You guys are, like you said, a fly on the wall, and you follow us. And I think that that's something that sometimes people seem surprised when I've told them that. They're like, no, they hop in with us and they get what they get. And I've joked with you before and all the camera people that we're just a bunch of silly cops, and you guys have the tough job that you have to collect what you do and stay with us. And then the people in New York who are editing it, they have the tough job as well. But we just do what we do, and you guys are the ones that have to make it look good and get on TV. What are your thoughts on all that?
It's interesting that you say that. I feel, there's times where I feel like the luckiest person on earth for having opportunities to be a part of a show like the First 48, because, we have those days that go on for hours, where it seems like when you're wrapping up an 18-hour day, you're heading right into another investigation that can go another 18 to 20 hours. And, sleep is just not a luxury that you can afford. And then there's times where, when there's the quiet and you can reflect and you can have like the camaraderie of just that's really very specific to what it is that you do. And I feel like that's, I always feel like that there's a privilege to be a part of an environment to which you're actually trying to do some semblance of good. There's I'm sure there's absolutely a calling as to why you become an investigator. And for me, it's just like, I feel privileged to be on the inside, kind of just surrounded by it. I know everyone who works for the First 48, be it editors, producers, they all feel the same way. That's why it's like, it does take, it takes a certain sort of mentality on every single role involved with making this show to be committed to going back years within a vault of footage to get the story right, and to be very specific with how they want to tell it without infringing upon very important details. Just maybe for convenience, people could make it go faster by omitting things, but certainly some of the best that I've worked with are part of the First 48 in ITV.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm going to kind of go off of. There's a listener that submitted a question, and her question was, "What did you do to prepare for dealing with law enforcement and homicides when working for the First 48?" That's kind of part of it. I want to add to that a little bit. I have a kind of a compound question to add to that. That had to have been something. Well, go ahead and answer that one, because I want to ask something to follow that.
Sure. I think there is a certain sort of personality to which gets noticed to be asked to have an invitation on this show. And initially, one of my very good friends, who's also been a part of this series for a very long time, recommended me for it. And when I was hired at the beginning, they made it very clear as to the sensitive nature of this show. And they have offered, multiple avenues for for guidance as to what it is that we may need help with in terms of the very real types of content to which we're filming, and it can affect you. There's been excellent executive producers in the past who have always had a phone call, to my disposal if I had any questions whatsoever. So most of my training came prior to even stepping foot in Atlanta for my very first show, by just having lots of conversations, talking to other field producers about what works. And then, truly there's nothing quite like when you're on the ground and you're doing it for real. But I had the guidance of a lot of people who had years of experience who helped me through it. But there was no course, there's no booklet per se, but plenty of references and helping hands if need be through specifically our company. I don't think that there was one person at any stage of my time on the first 48 that said, hey, if you're uncomfortable with something, you just have to kind of put up with it and keep going. Right. I think the nature of what this show is, if it's not something you can do, there's always this sort of this grace offered, being like, thank you. There is no hard feelings if you need to move on, which has always been pretty remarkable to me.
Yeah, and I think, and just to add to that a little bit, is that I think that people forget that you are affected by these murders just like we are. And I've said it, I say it all the time, and I continue to say it. If you're one of those detectives that happens to be one of those people that doesn't get affected by any of this, then I would really rethink whether or not you should be doing this to begin with. I mean, I don't really, and I've seen it before. It drives me nuts. And so there's no doubt in my mind that you get affected by this kind of stuff. And it's just the worst that humanity has to offer, honestly. And I appreciate the fact that you guys still have this show. I think that this show for us, and I think Ronnie would agree, has been an incredible blessing for the city of Tulsa, just to bring awareness within the community that we are actually real people, building those partnerships and trust within the community. That stuff is priceless. And I am shocked that there's not more cities that actually aren't out there taking advantage of this opportunity. And I know that they get asked, and it's just like they're constantly battling, trying to get another city to come on board. And it just hasn't happened for us. It's been perfect. I can't think of any negativity. Can you, Ronnie?
No. I would agree with what you said there. I tell people the only one negative that I can remember, you and I were out west in an apartment complex, and there was a lady that had some mental health issues that just was walking through and started screaming at us. And then she just kept going. So it wasn't a huge disruption. I think it really was just a mental health situation there. But every other interaction I've had with you guys on the show or the public has been positive. And I mean, it's coming up on 10 years that you guys have been in Tulsa, or the show has.
Yeah.
And I would say it's rare if it's more than 3 or 4 days in a row that I'm not still approached by people like, oh my gosh, hey, you're Ronnie from the first 48, or, hey, I love what you guys do. I appreciate it. And it's always been that it's positive. I appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for what you guys do. And so I agree. It's just been a great view of how the department is, and specifically the homicide guys. So it's been great.
So I wanted to make that was the comment that I wanted to make. And I really want to move on to Naked and Afraid. Okay. The reason why is because I got to be honest with you, Kip. When I first saw the advertisements when that show was about to come on, I thought that's the most ridiculous thing I've even heard of. That's going to be the stupidest show ever. They've went to a whole nother level, and it's really stupid. And then one day it happened to be on my TV, and I happened to be listening to it, and then I started watching it. And then I've been hooked ever since. And I have been watching that show. I mean, from Excel to, I mean, I feel like I know the people. And when you come to town, I'm like, okay, tell me what they're really like. Who's cool? What's up? I'm not asking for who wins, but I want to know what people are really like. And tell us what that is like to be a part of that show?
It really is one of the greatest things I've ever done. And it's strange because my first experience on Naked and Afraid was the very first season of XL in Colombia, and I wrapped that, and then I immediately got hired to go to Atlanta for the first 48. And so between those two shows, I made this decision where it's like these are really the only things that I want to work on, where there is a very genuine reality to each of those programs that it's very intriguing to me. And Naked and Afraid, there's been plenty of commentary online and certainly a lot of haters, but from my perspective, it's remarkably real. I mean, they are without a doubt taking off all their clothes with the exception of a burlap bag, and they're going into some of the most wild environments on Earth with nothing but the skin on their back and very primitive tools to see, for only the purpose of pride, what they can do for 21 days or 40 days or 60 days. And I got to say, there's something, I think there is something that appeals to a lot of people in their imagination, wondering, could I do that? If push came to shove, could I survive in the jungles with nothing but a knife and a fire starter? And the truth is, yeah, we can. We all can. It's remarkable what we're capable of enduring, but until you're putting yourself in that position, it's just hypothetical. So I love being around people who, for the very first time, get completely out of their comfort zone and do something that is Herculean. Like I salute everybody who's done that. Just to go out there, and that initial shock of taking off all your clothes to go into a mosquito sort of paradise, and really have to endure some very difficult environments. So there's not one person who I don't have a lot of respect for who chooses to do that.
And on that show, I guess I have a couple of questions about it. One would be the contestants on it, for lack of better words. Did you find are most of them survivalist type people, or are they from all walks of life, and kind of, I think you were referring to it a little bit, just someone who wants to challenge themselves, or was it, what was kind of the makeup of that, without specific people talking about them? But
it's interesting because there's a lot of different types of personalities that do find their way into that environment. Plenty of people who grew up with a passion for primitive survival techniques. A lot of veterans who, through their own admission, they do it to sort of counter certain effects of PTSD, to continue a pursuit of exceptionalism in their minds as to what sort of represents a formidable challenge. And there's also a great deal of unassuming men and women of all backgrounds who would come across as just being maybe a regular fixture anywhere in suburbia, but when they get pushed to these limits, they turn into these warriors. And I don't think I certainly don't think this is a surprise, but women do a lot better than men on these shows, because I just think that there is this biological component to where they're able to sort of compartmentalize discomfort. And it's just always interesting to me to see somebody who, on the surface, when they begin, you would think probably wouldn't last 15 minutes, but then they just turn into these warriors by the end of it. And it's through the resolve of just saying, I'm not quitting. That's impressive to me.
And then my second part of that, Jason, sorry, would with you guys as the film producers and the crew on that, what are your guys' accommodations during, if someone's out in the jungle for 15, 21 days, what are you guys dealing with?
It depends. Like, we've had locations where we've had these incredible 5-star resorts to where we're staying in parts of the world that really it's the only option because of having nothing else nearby. And truly not knowing how all of the locations are created for our show. I know that there's always an agreement that has to be made with whoever's the property manager of where we're going, and having the logistics involved to get us to where we need to be. So I know, for instance, like in South Africa, we could be going to a part of the country where there's nothing for 2 to 3 hours in every direction except for one beautiful lodge. So we'll stay there as we're working on that piece of property. We've been parts of the world where we just have canvas tents. Just a couple of years ago, I was camping on the edge of the Luangwa River in Zambia, and I had a canvas tent, and at night I could hear hippo grazing right outside from where I was sleeping on a cot. And it's, you're given sort of parameters as to what to do. Like if you get up in the middle of the night, you have to go across a massive stretch of land where there are no fences. You have to radio for somebody with a weapon to help guide you from potentially being prey to lions that are in the area, or just bumping into a hippo that might be grazing nocturnally. But and these things are, they're not for everyone, but I definitely have a certain sort of penchant for having adventures like that.
Yeah. And the hippo is, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that one of the most dangerous animals on the planet? It kills like more humans
so
than anybody.
Anything else. Yep.
And that's
Africa,
crazy.
Yeah, there are more people who die from hippos every year than anything else in Africa, and it a large part has to do with the fact that they're aggressively territorial. Like anything that comes between them and a water source, they just they take it personally. So,
and they're fast, right? Aren't they
very
really fast?
Very fast. Surprisingly, most people think, oh, how fast can a hippo move on land? You really don't want to know the answer to that. If you're staring it down, it's best to just let it be theoretical. You're not going to outrun it.
So I want to have Amanda pop up that photo real quick, which I think is fascinating. And it's, well, first of all, show the one with the elephant. I think that's pretty cool. You guys are standing there with that elephant in the background. I mean, that's not very far off. That's close, and things could get real in a real big hurry, I'm sure. But where was that? I mean, I'm sure it's in Africa, right?
That was about not even I think maybe 7 months ago. We were right on the edge of South Africa and Mozambique, and it was a beautiful private reserve. We were doing another spin-off of Naked and Afraid, and this was just at the end of the day, coming back on a truck. And those gentlemen who are flanking me are some of the most incredible conservationists, wildlife experts on Earth. They know how to read the animals very well. It's never a scenario that they would ever want to have to hurt anything. But this was at dusk. This was a 45-year-old bull elephant, more or less. That's what we were thinking. He's one of maybe 2 male elephants on this whole property. He is alpha. He doesn't have to worry about anybody messing with him. And this was just a nice time of day. He was in good spirits. I could get close with the camera and get these images. But I have been in positions before where they don't like you being that close, and they will do these things called a mock charge, where they'll just run up right on top of you and basically try to scare you to death. And there is a moment where any wildlife expert in Africa would know that when it lowers its head, it's coming to actually eliminate the threat, and then action has to be taken. But I'm really fortunate that I've never had anything that close with an elephant. They are, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful animals on Earth.
Yeah.
Something about African elephants too. They're just so majestic.
Agreed. So that leads me to, I want you to pop up that picture of him holding the Cape Cobra. Okay. This is one of the most deadliest snakes. If you're bitten by one of these, it could kill 6 human beings, because I've researched this. So tell us about this picture. What was this all about?
At the time, I had finished working on one of the Naked and Afraid XLs. This was back in 2015 19, and I took some time off. I was staying just outside Cape Town, and my girlfriend at the time, her family was in Cape Town, and this is a small little village, probably 2.5 hours outside of the nearest city. We were walking back from a market, and two gardeners in Afrikaans they spoke with her saying, "Hey, we found this Cape Cobra right next to your sister's house." And so she had mentioned that this was a rare thing to have found. So she was like, "Hey, you should take a picture of it." And my instinct was saying, "No, I don't really like to do that. It's not something I feel comfortable with." And I avoided my better judgment, took the picture, and we started walking back to the house, which is right next to where I'm standing. And within probably a couple minutes of that, the gardeners shout something in Afrikaans to her. She goes white, and I'm curious as to what was said. And she just looks at me. She's like, that thing was still alive. You can see its head. Like if it was wanting to bite, all it has to do is just strike my leg, and there's no way I would have made it to a hospital. I had no way of getting to a trauma center if I did get bit. No anti venom whatsoever. So I have learned to for one be very thankful that I am still here, but I just won't play that game ever again. I won't hold it.
But you honestly thought it was dead when you picked it up. So the thing was playing. Yeah. The thing was playing dead.
Yeah, I really thought that thing was 100% dead. I should have known better, but at the same time I'm I have to thank my guardian angels or something for not having it go any worse than just a little bit of shock and awe after that. But yeah,
right.
So you've been all over the world on these different types of shows. So what kind of run through some of the countries you've been to, and then I guess a little about what you liked about them, and then which one's your favorite one that you've visited?
I've been fortunate to travel mostly to South America and in Africa. Those are the two spots that I've done most of these shows for Naked and Afraid at. In South America, my very first location was Colombia. It was right on the edge of the Orinoco River, separating Venezuela, and it was again another private nature reserve. From there, we've done episodes in the States where, it's been challenging and very difficult. Been through Texas, Arizona, Alabama. I've been to Nicaragua, which was remarkably beautiful, very a very very unique history to that region of the world. And I've been through Trinidad and a lot of the islands through the Caribbean. The Bahamas, ironically, it's one of the most difficult locations I've ever been to for this show because of the rocky terrain, having to take a boat, and sandflies, which are just the absolute worst for me. Like I get bit badly by them. But been to Mozambique, I've been to South Africa plenty of times, and the Philippines. And there is something to me that just hits very differently about being in Africa. Like it's the wildlife, it's that, and I really love the Philippines too. Like, and I'm not trying to, I would never rank any of these spaces as one being better than the other. Like I've been in awe of basically everywhere that I've been, but something about Africa, it's really hard to ignore the magnitude of it.
And I remember when you were here a few weeks ago, when at lunch, I was telling you that I'm hoping to go on a safari here, and not next year, but in 26. And you were telling me that I could reach out to you again, and you would have some stuff. So I appreciate that. And I just think it would be so cool to see that. I would probably be stupid enough to try to go pick up one of those snakes if I thought it was dead also. So, but
it's interesting because one of the closest people that we work with in South Africa, who's kind of like the head honcho, one of the top wildlife experts that we work with. There's maybe 2 or 3 legends within the people who protect us, but him and his family are remarkable. And before he got into doing it, he was a homicide detective in in South Africa, and you know, he's just one of the nicest human beings on earth, and happily connect you to somebody
Okay.
who would, I'm sure, have some stories.
All right.
Hey, let me ask you this, Kip. So when you're out there on any of these adventures with Naked and Afraid, I mean, is there, and I don't even know if you're allowed to even talk about this. I'm sure most of it is basically as it happens. But are you allowed to talk to them, or is there any conversations where you're kind of getting to know these people a little bit just to pass the time?
It's, to me, I think that there are always styles to which each producer, each camera person, each audio mixer, they sort of incorporate for their own as to how they can best tell a story. I don't know how I could do that without being empathetic to where those people are coming from. You know, I'll never talk about you know, what I had for breakfast that day to somebody who's starving, but like, I will happily have conversations as to just how they're doing. And you know, there's always a line. You know, you can't you don't want to take too much away from the experience of being on your own, trying to survive and have it documented. But at the same time, it is it's I think a better story when somebody feels comfortable in front of a camera, particularly when they're vulnerable and they can feel at ease in having some very sensitive subjects come up, and whoever they're talking to has established that as a baseline. So I do like to have conversations with people out there, but I always keep it within the context of what they're going through.
Right. Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
So First 48, we dealt with that. We've talked about Naked and Afraid, kind of some serious remote type situations. Both those. What are there some other shows? I know you talked about American Chopper. I feel like that would be a little different dynamic, and maybe, for lack of better words, more fun at times. And tell us a little bit about that one if you can.
That was one of that was probably the first show that I had working as a camera operator, where it was, at the time, it was one of the biggest shows on cable. And you know, I've never been into motorcycles, or I haven't been a mechanic, but I definitely I am thoroughly impressed with the craftsmanship that goes into creating a custom car, a custom bike. And you know, when I was asked to do that show, I had been filming with an HD camera for maybe 3 months. And it was a huge step in my career to go to New York and be a part of it. I'm remarkably lucky in that I had a great crew that I was working with, but also it was probably the happiest of times for that family. And we traveled the world. You know, we went to Australia for almost a month. I stayed at Russell Crowe's house. You know, it was very unexpected, and he was a fan of the show, fan of those guys, and
Wow.
you know, just, you know, things that I never would have been able to afford had I not picked up a camera and followed some motorcycle builders.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. Go ahead, Ronnie. You got another one?
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I know that I bug you. I bug you from time to time. I don't know that I bug you. You're never going to say that, but I do message you from time to time when I'm like on a binge watch of Naked and Afraid, and I'm like, "Hey, I love this episode," or "This is phenomenal," and that's kind of fun. I know that you probably keep contact with a lot of those contestants that are on Naked and Afraid. Do you? Are you kind of friends with them?
Yeah, I think that you know, the thing that I do enjoy most about social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or anything else, is that you can stay connected with these people that come in and out of your lives for even just a brief period of time. And you know, if nothing else, I like to see how, you know, these people who have gone through some pretty remarkable feats of endurance, what their lives are like after the fact. And you know, I stay friendly with people, but I wouldn't say that, like, aside from, you know, potentially running into them again on other projects, or just wishing somebody a happy birthday, it's, you know, I always know the line of having to stay within the professional context of things.
Yeah.
I know another thing Jason has always liked about you, and we have failed to make it happen, is you're a musician. So, and he's always wanted you to play your bass when you come to Tulsa sometimes. Tell us what's up with your music stuff.
You know, it's funny because last time I was in Tulsa, which was only a couple of weeks ago, Jason was out of town, and I realized that one of the single greatest guitar shops on earth that I've ever seen is in Tulsa. I think it's called the Guitar House of Tulsa, and it is impeccable. And I went there at the end of a day, and I just wanted to check it out. And I spent probably a couple of hours just plugging in and playing different instruments. But I started, I wanted to be a musician when I was a lot younger. And I played in a whole bunch of different types of bands. I was in a ska band, a blues rock band. I was in a Latin percussion jazz ensemble. And for a while, I thought that that's what it was going to be for me. I worked at a couple of different grocery stores. I worked at a deli in Columbus, and I played music. And I opened up for the Doobie Brothers and Chicago at the Polaris Amphitheater in Columbus. And at the time, I thought this was going to be the beginning of my career as a rock star. But instead, I graduated and then had an opportunity to go out to Los Angeles as a production assistant. And for one reason or another, mostly just because of not having the time, I never pursued music as much as I thought I was going to. But it's always a hobby. Like I have acoustic guitars up around my apartment that I have in LA now that I'll pick up and play. But I'd be lying to say if there aren't some serious cobwebs to the craft. So it does have a little bit of brushing up to do, but I love to play.
Well, I think
we're
the
going to
next
do
time
that.
you're in Tulsa, we have to.
No,
make
we're
that
doing
happen.
it.
Okay.
No, we're going to go. We're going to that shop. You're going to plug in. You're going to play for 2 hours. It's going to happen because I didn't even know about that, and that would have been amazing just to hang out and just kind of chill out and listen to you jam. I'm going to be able to meet. I'm meeting Drowning Pool this weekend, and I don't know if you've ever heard of that band or not, but I'm going to meet him with Doug Satchery, the Spice King from Louisiana, and we're going to go hang out and meet the band. I think he's got something to do with their tour or whatever. So I can't pass up that opportunity. I'm a huge rock fan. So there was another story that you've told me that I just love. See, I think the people are getting it. You're like one of the most interesting people out there. You've done this, you've done that, you've hung out at the Oscars. And what happened at the Oscars when you were at the Oscars one time?
That was my very first paid position in Los Angeles. And I was working nights helping the Teamsters put up the scaffolding in front of the theater where the show was at. So my boss at the time said, "Hey, look, you don't have to be here until the show's done, but the awards show will provide a tuxedo for you, and if you want to hang out, you can." And I was in Los Angeles for all of maybe 2 months, so I had this tuxedo. I had a big badge with my name on it and my face, and I'm backstage opening the door for a whole bunch of A-list celebrities. And my full legal name is Christopher Robbins, which is very similar to Winnie the Pooh. And I'm opening the door and I see Jack Nicholson come out with his date that year, which was Nicolas Cage, and they're talking with Keanu Reeves and having cigarettes, and I'm trying to be pretty cool about it, but glancing over my shoulder and not really making eye contact, and my back's turned, and then I just hear, like, kind of over my shoulder, I hear, "Is that your real name?" And it's Jack Nicholson asking if this is my real name on my name badge. And I said, "Yeah, it's my real name." He's like, "That's great. That's just great." And I thought it was one of the coolest things ever. But he, with everyone there, I just opened the door. They say you're not supposed to look people in the eye, and that was the closest I've ever been to working with movie stars, with the exception of the reality TV shows that I've done. But it was. It led to everything else in my career, one job to the next. So I'm grateful for it.
That's awesome.
So let's talk about your your girlfriend a little bit and what she does.
Yeah.
Artist, right?
My girlfriend is she's a remarkably talented abstract oil painter. This piece behind me is something that she worked on, but she mostly works with layers of oil paints, and she creates kind of a mood with what she's working with. Big pieces of canvas. Her website, BridgetWeiserArtwork.com. You can see like the different sort of examples of her work, but she's been featured in Vanity Fair and British Vogue. She's been heavily publicized over the last year with her artwork, and it's she's extremely supportive of what I do. I loved telling her that I was doing this tonight with you guys, because she's been really she's been so impressed with just the nature of not just your career, but the flow of to what you're doing with the podcast. And so I'm right now, this is the most impressive thing that I've done in her eyes, being a part of a podcast with two homicide detectives. So
That's really
so
cool.
I'm just I'm very grateful to be here.
Somebody asked a question earlier. I would just want to mention it. Have you ever filmed on alone? Well, I don't think that camera people are on alone, really. Not maybe at a small scale, right? You're not out there with those people on alone. They're filming themselves. Am I right?
It's interesting that you ask that, because it's another ITV produces Alone, which is of course the company that First 48 is under. But right before I came to Tulsa to see you last, I had the chance to go on the next season of Alone, which I know I can't say as to where that is, but it would have been as a shooter producer, similar to what I do on First 48. But to your point, yeah, it's mostly captured through the eyes of those contestants. And unlike Naked and Afraid, or even with what I'm doing on the First 48, the commitment that they ask of the crew, which rightfully so, you're going to be out there for the minimum of 3 months, I think. So it's that would have been a lot for me. And it's just at a different stage in life, I probably would have hopped happily into that production. But right now it's just it's trying to pick and choose things that give me the opportunity to work and travel while having a balance at home. So
yeah, and on those shows like Naked and Afraid and Alone and those type of misery, I know it's really cool for us to watch, but it's a real, I mean, you're miserable at times. And I know you probably won't admit that when you're out there, but I would think that those kind of jobs, without saying what it is, you probably get paid more on those type of jobs, right?
it depends on sort of the location, and there are certainly other parts of the world outside of following survivalists in jungle locations, whether it's specifically war zone locations, where you will be paid significantly more. Every company is different. Every employee is different as to what it is that they're going to sort of agree a deal towards. But I have definitely endured some of the most miserable types of conditions, even with shoes and clothing, bug spray, everything. Like I've documented these things as to like the bites on my hands and my feet. And for instance, in the Bahamas, like the sand flies, there's no way to know through a Google search that that sand flies will get into your nostrils and bite in between your nose if you're not covering up. And that's
Miserable.
a different layer of hell for me. So
Yeah.
I just I've had to endure all of it.
We got 5 minutes. I want to ask, go ahead, Ronnie, and I want to ask one after you.
Okay. I was going to say, you've been all over the place. Is there any place in the world that you haven't been to that you would love the opportunity to go to? I know you've said earlier you didn't want to rank the places, and I completely understand that, because each place is unique and has their cool stuff to it. But where have you not been that you would hope to go to at some point?
It's crazy. I haven't really explored. I've never been, other than the Philippines, I haven't done much throughout Asia. I would love to see China. I would love to see Japan, Singapore, Thailand. At some point, I'd love to see India. I'd love to see the duality of India. I know it's incredibly beautiful. But I also I really want to just explore our country as much as I can too. There's plenty of states that I haven't seen that, you know, I would love to just crisscross around and just, you know, explore them all. But yeah, there's I mean, it seems like a really big world, and it is, but it's a lot smaller than you think too. And like once you start traveling, you realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one thing that I wanted to ask you real quick is, what is your advice to somebody that wants to do your job? I mean, if they are aspiring to do your job, what would you recommend they do to start off and to get on that journey?
Without a doubt, I feel like every journey should begin at the bottom, and you should work your way up. And I recommend to anybody who's looking to get into it to start off as a PA, a production assistant, and see through that position what you might be interested in. Maybe it's picking up a camera, maybe it's being a producer, maybe it's becoming an editor and working in a room by yourself with a computer sifting through thousands of hours of footage. But to start off with an entry-level position and then see what it is that you're most drawn towards. I think that if you want to become it's ironic because if you want to become a camera operator or somebody who does this style of work, I do believe that listening is probably the most critical component, like the audio end of things. Like if you're listening to somebody who's mic'd all day long, you're picking up on nuances that you'll just never see through a lens. So I really recommend that if you want to be a good storyteller in the capacity of what we do on the First 48, you got to listen. And I know that's one of the big reasons as to why the field team in Tulsa or anywhere else in the country right now, they're exceptional because they show up and they listen, whether it's just through chit chat or it's going to lunch or paying attention to something that that is so granular that you know there wouldn't be a reference point on a disc that could be accessed quickly enough to what somebody like Beth or Mikey or Adam would be picking up on quickly just because they hang out and they listen.
Listen, I want to say stick around after we cut off of here because we'll talk for just a few minutes.
Sure.
And I can't thank you enough, Kip. I think you're just, I mean, obviously, if you're watching this and you don't think that he's just a #1 class act, then you're crazy because he's seriously #1 in my book. I wanted to put a shout out to Jermaine Rogers from Mobile Homicide. Congrats to you. Not only him, but I actually 2 people became sergeants there. I only got a message of Jermaine, but one of his other colleagues became a sergeant in Mobile Homicide as well. So big shout out to you guys, and thanks to Steph for bringing that to our attention. Great questions tonight. This has been fantastic. We got to get off of here. Next week, we're going to have Aisling from Ireland. She actually lives in Northern Ireland. Ronnie's not going to be able to be here next week. So I thought I'm going to bring on my #1 fan in the entire country of Ireland, and she's going to enlighten us as to what that's like watching the show from that end. And she's probably my #1 fan, president of my fan club in that country. So that's awesome. All right. Anything else? We got to get off of here.
Yeah. Thanks, Kip. It was great.
Thanks, Kip.
Thank you so much.
You're fantastic. Take us out, Amanda. Thank you all.